Al Jazeera Podcasts.
It's said that laughter is the best medicine, and in a time when there is so much conflict, the power of humour can go a long way. Cartoonist Nigar Nazar has used this concept in her work to tackle social and cultural issues in the hopes of making heavy topics engaging and accessible. Now, that's a tricky combination to pull off, and I want to know how she does it. I'm Samantha Johnson, and this is Now You Know, a safe space where we go all in on stories about women, so by the end of each episode you can say, now I know. Nigar Nazar is the first professional female cartoonist in Pakistan and the Muslim world. She's the founder of Gogi Studios, a creative initiative in which she uses cartoons to raise awareness, advocate and educate both kids and adults on various issues using humour. And she's here to tell us how she does it and the impact it's had. So, Nigar, thank you so much for joining us on Now You Know.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, so tell me, I'd love to know what it was like for you growing up.
Like they say, many moons ago, I was living with my father, my parents in DC, and I got hooked on to comic books. These comic books were, the very first one might have been Richie Rich, or maybe Little Dot. They were like all together. We were always exchanging comic books, reading comic books. And of course, Archie's came in later. And I was just, it's easy read. Comic books are mostly pictures, funny, humorous, characters. And so I was hooked on to them. When I came back to Pakistan with my parents, I was missing them and wondering whether we would ever have them, and we didn't. So what happened was that I was doing pre-medical and I was studying in the medical subjects, but I was always drawing. I was drawing in the margins of my books, and I just had this urge to draw. I enjoyed it, and it was good fun for me. And whenever I was bored, I was just drawing. So after almost graduating, I decided I really wanted to do fine arts, although I was a scholarship holder, but I just felt that that was my call. And I took a U-turn, and that the rest is history.
I mean, people might think, you know what, if you want a steady job, a steady career, then you be a doctor, you be a lawyer, but you went a different route.
Yes, I was missing comic books, and you know what? When I didn't find them, I said, okay, I'll draw them. And for that, I needed to change my field of work. And that's why I was in the boarding at that time. So I didn't have my parents controlling me too much, but I did tell them that the scholarship will continue even if I change my subjects. And I said, just let me defer for 1 year. And they let me. And then, of course, there was no looking back. It was fun. I got into the fine arts department admission quite easily, actually.
So you decided to follow your passion, and you created a really popular character called Gogi. Just tell us how that came about and what was the inspiration behind her.
Okay, so the thing is that when I went into the fine arts department, and I just was learning the foundation, and then I decided I wanted to do comic art. There was no such subject in the academy. And I remember when I went into the Arts Council, the principal there, a very eminent artist, said to me that we don't have this subject, but you can just draw a cartoon and show it to me every day, which was not easy for me because I felt there needed to be a training. But I did kind of do it on my own and kept reading books. In those days, we had a lot of these Archie comic books.
Yeah.
I just followed that, and I said, I'll invent a character, and it's going to be a woman. And all the cartoons that I see in the newspapers are political, and even if they are the pocket cartoons, as they were called, there were no females actually. So I said, I'm going to have a woman, a young woman who is confident, educated, and wants to conquer the world. So that's how Gogi came into being. And I thought I would call her Gogi because I rather like that name. It's a pet name, actually. It has other meanings as well, but that was going to be the name. And then, of course, the eyelashes came from this reference, and the short bob came from another reference from a sculpture that was in the Art Institute. That's how she just kind of evolved. And when the first cartoon of Gogi was published by the journal of the same institute, was when Gogi just came into being. It was a cartoon that I made of the institute. Actually, they liked it very much, and then there was a newspaper who needed a cartoonist. I was nominated, kind of suggested to go and talk and meet the editor, and the rest was all from one stage to the other, to the other.
I'd love to know if there were other women in your field as well.
We're talking about 70s. And in the 70s, I don't know if there were any other women doing what I was doing, making comic strips. I was very interested to just draw and illustrate and create, but my editor was kind of tough with me. He said, "You're going to create Gogi, and it's going to appear every day." And I said, "Oh my goodness, without even a training to create a comic strip every day,
Oh, he threw
it's a
you in the
tall
deep
order."
end. He just like, you go, you do it.
He said to me, either Gogi comes every day or she doesn't come at all.
Oh, wow.
So I took up the challenge, and I think that seasoned me to work fast. For the newspaper, you work fast, real fast. So that's how it all happened. And then there were times when I was not having anything funny to present to my readers, and the page, they would leave a space on the page for me to just come up with something. And the most memorable cartoon that I did then was the one on women empowerment, you could say, or birth of a female child became my subject. And Flash, it came really at midnight, and I said, this is the idea, because the editor had asked me to draw a cartoon on the subject of women because the Women's Day was nearing. So I just drew this cartoon. The idea of why is it so regrettable to have a female child and not be celebrated, and why is it so celebrated when a male child is born? So Gogi and her friend are walking along on the street, eating corn on the cob. And her friend says to Gogi, Gogi, when my grandfather was born, they passed around cigars. The next panel, she says, when my father was born, they passed around cakes. So Gogi turns around to her and she says, Nadia, when you were born, she says, they passed out.
That was, I've got to say that's very brave of you. Like, what was the reaction to that
Well, the
strip?
reaction, people would always crack up. I even repeat it now, and I tell people, I know you're bored of hearing this probably, but the ones who haven't heard it or haven't seen it, it's a panel by panel comic strip in 4 panels. And after all these years, it's still one of my favorite. And it's funny, and then the message kind of sinks in, and that's when you are addressing a mindset. Now, that after years of working in this field has become my motivation, it has become my objective, because we have many customs, traditions, or mindsets that are retrogressive,
And what are some of those
unfortunately.
mindsets that you're talking about?
Well, don't educate the girls, they'll become bad. Don't let them work, or they should be at home, doing the drudgery, or so many no's, that I think that I believe in equal opportunities, and I have been always advocating women empowerment, and I have always made stories. And so one has to reinvent oneself, and that's what I did when I was not getting a job in the newspaper or doing comic strips. After some time, I realized I had to do something different. So I went into comic books, and one after the other. Then I went again into something different, and I did cartoons in the hospitals, murals, huge murals with cartoons and health messages. And after sometimes again, I reinvented and started doing cartoons on the buses. So I was wrapping public buses with colorful Gogi cartoons and messages on social issues.
The topics that you're talking about, one would say that they're quite controversial. I mean, did you have any blowback?
I was close to it once when I did my very first bus on sexual harassment. The sponsors decided they didn't want their name on the bus anymore. And I said, it's already done, it's all printed, and now we're, plastering it on to the bus. And they said, no, 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 you must remove our name. And I said, it will be at a cost. And they said, at any cost. And it kind of was scary. And I said, all right, so let's redo it. And we did redo it. But at the end of it, I forgot to remove my name or my email address. My awareness comic books, which are 7 in number, which are my mission in life to, to push into all marginal societies and the underprivileged and every end of the country, is these 7 comic books in which one is on the interfaith harmony, the other is corruption and the women's rights and girls' education, the kind of subjects that are our social issues.
And what's been the reaction from the public?
Very good. Men and women, I always get appreciation, and I always target the grassroots levels. The people who can't read very much can see the pictures, and they can relate to it, and they can understand. I have very good testimonials from those comic books, and I have also thrown in one comic book about Gogi, everyday life humor. So that's very nice too. And the best part is that the best testimonial I got from those comic books was from a village girl who started going back to school after reading my comic book on girls' education and reading it to her parents. And it was her father who said that from tomorrow, Tahira, you will be going to school.
Oh.
And she wrote a letter to me. She wrote a letter with her father's passport size photo and her mother's ID card from both sides, and a very nice letter. It was amazing. I thought that was the best award I got.
And for you as an artist, what's been the most difficult topic to illustrate?
Child abuse, child safety. That was challenging, very taboo. I always end up doing stories. So when I'm doing the comic books, I'm writing a story. And when I write a story, because everybody wants to hear a story, right? So I just bring it in a very subtle way. And in the end, I even have something for the children, like a game, which they play. And the more they play, the more they learn. Recently, we are doing animation as well. So whenever the written word cannot be read, because the literacy level is not the best in the world, then the animation helps, because that's a story where you just have to hear and watch and look. So, yeah.
So when you want to tackle those issues like child abuse or child safety, can you just talk us through your method? How do you start something like that?
I make it relatable. I talk to people, I talk to my clients, because they are in it, they are very much in it, and they know so many real, true life stories. And I listen to them and I take notes. And then I I bring in a character that's a fun character. For example, for this very one, I brought in a crow. I normally have a parrot, but then I thought, let's have a crow this time. So we had a crow. And the crow is always making fun and being the gesture and making it lighter. And when I hear these stories and I assimilate them and I recreate them, and then I make them very relatable to the people who would be the players in the drama,
Yeah.
then I also want to create something light for the children. That's when I created a game, a board game, and they love the board game. And so it becomes something that they relate to, and they have the answers after reading the book. I also made a little gift pencil case, a little, one of those what we call geometry cases, where you have stationery and stuff. And on that stationery, I did a 3-panel cartoon. And the panel of cartoons was no, like the little child is saying no to the adult. Go, he runs, she or he runs. And then third panel had them no, go, tell. So tell is when he's telling the adult, Gogi in this case, about the bad experience or the experience that was going to be bad. So every day that the child uses this pencil case is when the message gets reinforced. You do not allow anything like that to happen. So you say, no, go, tell.
Yeah.
So that's very effective. So it has to be an innovative approach. So I always try to think out of the box.
The work that you are doing is so impactful. And the fact that you use humor it's another beautiful tool. Did you experience anything in your life for you to go down that route and use humor?
Well, when I had my exhibition in Spain, I was invited by their Department of Humor at the Alcalá University. That was when I realized that humor can build bridges. Everybody likes to laugh. And if you can create work in humor with very little text, you are communicating. And if you are amusing them, it's the best diplomacy. I mean, I'm a diplomatic wife, but I know for sure that when I have exhibitions or when I am there interacting or presenting my work, humor is a very powerful tool. And cartoons more so, because in cartoons you can exaggerate. In cartoons, you have so much liberty to exaggerate, you have so much liberty to express. It's very receptive. And like I said, everybody wants to laugh, especially in these times.
The best medicine.
It is.
Yeah. I understand that you're doing some work with the UN. Can you tell us more about that?
I started with UNICEF. My very first comic book on health and hygiene was published by UNICEF. And then I went to UNDP. I was pitched. Before I can pitch it, I'm approached to draw something for the refugees who need to know about health and hygiene. So it was UNDP, UNFPA, UN Women, what I think is so important in Pakistan, again, addressing mindsets, again, for the population. It's a very challenging subject because you have these mindsets where they say, no, you cannot do family planning and this, that. So yeah, if I could address that successfully, I would say I've made a service to Pakistan.
I love the fact that you followed your passion and you also found your purpose with your artistry and your cartoons and through Gogi as well. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on to Now You Know and telling us more about your story and the impact of Gogi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
I hope this conversation has been insightful for you as well. So please share your thoughts, and if you have any stories you'd like us to explore on Now You Know, just let us know in the comments. Thank you, and see you again next week.